I have a very interesting story to share with all of you as we start this new journey of podcasting again. And this story actually takes me back to over 10 years ago now, or it should be around 10 years ago, because I used to stay in Mangochi, and one of the guys that I befriended when I was in Mangochi was a guy called Lot Dzonzi. And he took some good pictures of me and my friends. And so when I moved to Lilongwe, I started following him because he was in school, but he stayed in Lilongwe. I had not really had any connection with his name until one day he had posted something to do with a youth leadership workshop that was happening. And the guest or the main speaker for that workshop was one Lot Dzonzi. So when I saw that, I started asking myself, Lot Dzonzi. And then I inquired from him. He said, no, Lot Dzonzi is my dad. And I was like, Lot Dzonzi is the Inspector General of Malawi Police. And he said, yes. So I was like, is he the one who is actually doing this workshop? And then he said, not the Inspector General of Police, but Brother Lot Dzonzi. That was really interesting to me. And today, coming back on podcast and speaking to you, our listeners, I've got a very, very interesting conversation because I now get to sit down 10 years later with none other than Brother Lot Dzonzi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Ndiambe nchingani atu o macheza atu. I've known you for a long time. Ngati Inspector General wa Police. Mene ndinkadziwa dzina Lot Dzonzi. And the first time pamene tinakumana face to face was during this youth leadership or youth workshop, youth training. I've been trying to remember kuti kunali kutiko but it was at a school somewhere. And that was around 2014 because I remember I came in Lilongwe in 2014 around July. So it should be like really probably around August that I attended this seminar that you were hosting.
African Bible College?
At the African Bible College, yes. Yes, because I remember it was at their school, and I kept because I just got my directions to this. Yes, it was at African Bible College. Yeah. Please, can you share with me why you decided to do those workshops, and from your rank as an Inspector General, and you now saying, no, I want to be able to work with young people. Maybe let's start from there before we even go into who is Lot Dzonzi, which is something a lot of people probably have already read about you.
Right. I think this emanates from my life purpose. In 1999, I lost two of my closest friends. One died in March, the other died in November. So in January of 2000, I started struggling with God about the death of these two friends. Both of them had left 3 children each. I struggled with it for over a month. Then I went on an official government trip to Cape Town with the then Inspector General, Let Kennedy Chirambo. During lunch break, I walked into a bookshop and I came across a book by Miles Munro, The Pursuit of Purpose.
The Pursuit of Purpose, yes.
Immediately, I started reading the introduction of that book, which Miles Munro was saying, God doesn't deal with human life in terms of the length of human life. He deals with human life in terms of fulfilled purpose. From the reading of that statement, I then started reflecting on my life and saying, what is my purpose? Why am I here? I ended up developing a purpose statement for myself, which goes, I want to maximize my life and invest it in others by helping them discover, develop, and maximize their God-given potential.
I think for those that are tuning in, it's also an opportunity that we can also share the purpose of this podcast. I know people know me as a podcaster. I've been in the space for some time now. But coming on this podcast, a lot of people would be, LAB20 podcast, what's the purpose of the podcast? Actually, I think from the intro of this podcast that we already did, we said we want to make sure that every conversation that we have on this podcast, even if it's just maybe two people that are going to listen, but if it helps them change in a positive way, and then if they leave, whether it's the gadget that they were watching on, whether it's on TV, and then they go home or they go out there, they can actually feel like they are part of a bigger development agenda. So do you mind sharing with us when you discovered that, I need to frame a purpose for my life? When you actually said, okay, this is my purpose, what was that? And with your professional life, because you said probably already in police by then, if you had
Yes, I was.
gone with the Inspector General that time, how did you now say, from being in service, this is how I'm going to roll out this purpose, and this is how I'm going to impact the world?
Those that have worked with me in the police service very closely in the various offices that I was able to lead, and even when I was Inspector General of Police, they will agree with me that one of the major things that I did, apart from making sure that we are fulfilling the purpose of the particular office that I am heading, was to be a source of motivation and encouragement in the area of professional development in the lives of those officers. I have interacted with officers that, when I first met them, had a JC certificate, and today they have master's degrees. I have interacted with officers that were messengers, and today they are senior police officers, because I provided them the encouragement and the motivation to really see that they have greater potential than what they were holding at the same time. Apart from working with officers to help them develop themselves, I even worked with children of police officers in police lines.
Okay.
When I was at police headquarters, for example, every school holiday, I would conduct youth training workshops that are aimed at assisting them develop their potential. I also worked quite a lot with the youth in churches, which I still do. And even in the community, if you go to Jinsapo, where I live, I have conducted workshops for the youth within the community. I have mentored youth within the community. I have worked with young people more. And you would be saying, why is your target young people?
Yes.
Old people are set in their ways, and they have committed their lives to a lot of things, some of them negative though, that make them difficult to begin to change. And yet young people are still exploring life. And therefore, if you work with them and to help them really discover why they are here and what they would want to pursue, you are helping them quite a lot.
All right. I think that's really also feeds into why we think we need to exist and have this platform, where we feel like there's a lot of information that's going out there, mainly influenced by social media, that every young person now, everyone has a gadget in their hands. They're able to create information, receive information, alter information, and pass it on. But then for us to actually find credible information, credible knowledge that we need as we grow, I think is becoming a challenge. And your focus that you want to work more, or you have been working more with young people, I think it's something that we would also want to really tap into. Right. And hence the reason why we actually called for you to actually come and sit with us here. I've been following you a lot because you are somebody who I think has made it your life mission to share freely. Yes. That's what I observe, at least from where I sit. Whenever you speak, it's like you are sharing. We know a lot of people that have had higher positions in public or in private, but their lives are always really private. You wouldn't really know about where they pray, who they talk to, or what they are going through.
Yes.
But you have openly shared your life with us. Why do you think that is important, to share freely, despite you being somebody who has held one of the biggest public positions in this country?
Right. Since that day where I came across the book Pursuit of Purpose by Miles Munla, I really became a mentee of Miles Munla. Although until his death I never had a chance of meeting him personally. I missed him at the airport in Johannesburg once. But I have read a lot of his books. In one of his books, he asked the question, in a city like Lilongwe, where would you go to find the most skilled, talented people? And perhaps the ordinary person will quickly say, no, I will rush to Luanda.
Yeah.
Because it's a university.
It's a university. Probably would be thinking at the university, of course.
But shockingly, the place in Lilongwe where you would find the most skills and talents that you can think of is Area 18 Cemetery. Because there at the graveyard are buried inspector generals who died as police constables. There at the graveyard are buried university professors who died as primary school teachers. People go to the grave with all their potential and talents. So Miles Mulo challenged me to say, make sure by the time you die empty. Empty yourself of all that you know, all that you have. Share it with the world. So I am open because I want to share what I know. I want to share my perspectives to life. Because somebody would pick that and it would help them become better. And that's the reason I am open. Anyway, the things that I know came to me from other people. Why should they stop at me? Why should they find a graveyard in me? I have to transmit them fair. That's my motivation.
Perfect. In one of your social media posts, probably was around your birthday, you wrote, and I'll try to just read through that post.
Okay.
Because it actually resonates with what you are saying of why you open yourself up. You said, "Come as I share experiences from 64 years of life. I've been through floodwaters. I have been through fire. I've been at the top of the mountain, and I've been at the bottom of the valley. Yet I'm still standing. You are a child of the Most High. You are called to be above and not below, to be the head and not the tail, to be a forward and not a bygone. Zingalume, njuchi, pula, ntenga." I read that statement when you had just posted then, and I kept it as a screenshot in my phone. That's why it keeps popping. And this actually took me through your life that we have known, you have shared, from being an inspector general. You were also posted to the New York just soon after relinquishing your position as the inspector general. Can you just tell us about your experience now when you moved from Malawi to the New York? What was that like, that phase of serving the country now from a diplomatic point of view?
I have said to people, in terms of profession, when I got to the height of being Inspector General of Police, I had reached the apex of my profession. Being deployed as the Deputy Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of Malawi to the United Nations was really icing on top of the cake in terms of my profession.
Yeah.
Because I was working in a very small office. The Malawi mission to the United Nations is, in terms of numbers, is smaller than the office,
of the
actual office of the Inspector General. The number of people that work in the Inspector General's office at police headquarters is bigger than the number of people that work at the Malawi mission to the United Nations. But the greatness about working there was that I was working in an intergovernmental environment where you are interacting with people from all governments in the world, where you have experience of getting into a lift and find that you are standing face to face with the foreign minister of China. It's quite an experience.
Exactly.
One time I went into the same lift that late President Robert Mugabe was in. So it's a challenging environment. You interact at a global level. It broadens your thinking. It broadens your world. But living in New York as well, New York is the place that even people who are Americans want to go and live and experience their life there.
Exactly.
So it was quite a different type of situation for me, quite educative in the process.
Right.
To show you one of the examples of what I did because of my stay in the US, as I was preparing to come back on retirement, I asked myself the question, what lessons do I take back to Malawi? And ended up producing that booklet, The 12 Principles of Success, where I identified 12 principles that I think contribute to the success of people in the United States of America.
Wow. Interesting and very impressive. So, you have talked about your stint in New York and how it actually helped you also look at WAD from a different perspective. I wanted that because I always thought that could have been the peak of the mountain that you have been on as one of them. That I've left Malawi with a huge responsibility that you had as an Inspector General of Police, and then you have gone to the US with not too much demanding workload and all that, but still serving the country. Now, if we go back a little bit now as Inspector General of Police,
Yes.
what would you say were some of the highlights that you had? I don't want to focus on the highlights, but some of your experiences being the Inspector General of Police. When you look back and reflect on the status of the country and everything that happened and how you actually came in, what would you tell someone about your time in service as the Inspector General of Police?
If there is a job that is so dynamic, you can never predict what the next day brings for you. That job is the policing job. The challenge about the job is that you are never called on because there is a birthday party, because there is a wedding, because there is a celebration of some sort. You get engaged in your job, in your work, because something has gone wrong. Somebody has not followed the rules, has not followed the laws. So you are dealing with crisis upon crisis on a daily basis. And you have to have the ability to be calm, the ability to be emotionally intelligent, to be able to manage your emotions. Let me give you an example. A few days ago, there was this accident where a minibus caught fire.
Yes.
And 26 people
died on the spot.
Now, can you imagine being a police officer arriving at that scene and you have got to manage that scene? People around are very emotional, they are crying, they are shouting, and yet you have to do your job. And for you to arrive at that scene of an accident, you have procedures that you have to follow. Otherwise, you would destroy the evidence
that's needed. Yeah.
The people that are watching you think you are delaying to take appropriate action. It's not easy not to involve your emotions in what is happening, but you have to. So that is the challenge about the job. But what I found to be the best that can happen to you is to have a strong team around you. You are an Inspector General of Police. You have commissioners, apart from your deputies. You have commissioners that are managing the regions. You have officers in charges of stations, substations. You have to create that ability of encouraging them. And you work together as a team rather than separately. You cannot afford to separate yourself from your team. But the other challenge that I personally experienced was to budget. I mean, not to budget, rather to balance your role as a manager of this institution that is supposed to operate professionally balance that with the policy level. The policy level and the political level that is supposed to run, and it has a political program of 5 years. And that's their interest. You then are in the middle as Inspector General to balance that. How do you translate policy and policy direction into a professional directive to be implemented by your officers? That balance is not easy. It is not easy. But it has to happen. Therefore, you have the responsibility of explaining to the political authority, of also explaining to the professionals of what is happening without compromising it. And that to me was the greatest challenge for the job.
I see. You just gave an example of the minibus that just caught fire a few days ago. And I'm someone who is really bad with graphics. And when this happened, the same thing that I was talking about, that these days, because you have a gadget in your hand, there's so much information that comes. Sometimes you just open things. And yeah. So I remember receiving one picture in a WhatsApp group, and the caption that accompanied with that picture was "Malo mota zitandiza zona kumajambula." So because I couldn't really see what was happening, I downloaded that picture. But at first I was like, if you are sharing pictures of accidents, please don't forward them to me. But I opened this particular picture, and in this particular picture there was this minibus in flames. And on the side, there was a gentleman who was in a police attire, and he had a phone in his hand. And the picture shows he was either taking a picture or filming the scene. For a lot of people, when they saw that, it was, oh, this guy was not helping, was busy filming instead of taking action. I don't know what action that could be. If you were in the office of the Inspector General and you see this, what would you make of this picture if it came to your desk?
I saw the picture you are referring to.
All right.
And I say to myself, you can only make this pronouncement if you had asked the officer and he was not taking official pictures, official video clips.
Exactly.
The only time you can blame the officer for taking pictures without helping is when you have evidence that they were not taking pictures or video clips for official purposes of gathering evidence. That's the only time you could blame them. That's the very reason I say the challenge of the job is that when you get to a scene of crime or to a scene of accident, as a police officer, you have procedures that you have to follow in terms of evidence gathering, which to the eye of the member of public is you are wasting time. Why are you wasting time? That's the reason that if we were well resourced, because of us not being well resourced, we don't have tape that the police in other countries use. Where they arrive at a scene of an accident or a scene of crime, they will put a tape around to exclude members of the public, not because they have anything to hide, but because they don't want the scene to be disturbed before they would collect appropriate evidence. So those are the challenges. And then you are saying that information is being sent by somebody who was also
taking a picture on the side
without helping, because citizens also have a citizen responsibility to help at a scene like that one. So, as I am saying, you can only pass judgment on this officer that officer was wrong if you really came to know what his intentions of taking the clips were.
All right. For those that maybe have just started watching this podcast and you're wondering who I'm talking to, I'm speaking to Brother Lot Dzonzi. I always find this interesting because I think every time I want to refer to you as former Inspector General of Police, I always go back to where you always said, no, refer to me as Brother Lot Dzonzi. Talking about your experience and your wealth of knowledge about the service, which is the police service, I will refer to something that I saw that you wrote and which you have also talked to in passing as we are speaking, but I want to bring in my own experience. I've had several instances where I've been robbed at home. There's been burglary, a TV has been stolen, or car batteries have been stolen, things like those, and I've gone to the police. I've had a lot of interactions, therefore, with the police, mainly in the area where I stay in Kanengo. Yeah, apart from that, I think we interact every day with law enforcers, whether it's on the road, at traffic, and in different instances. One thing that actually happened to me was I had a complaint. I was at the police station. I had a complaint because I was meant to wait to just identify some items that had been recovered, and I think they were still processing something, and then somebody with the keys was not around, so I stayed there for longer, and then I left. I came the next day. I wasn't helped, so instead of finding out who I could speak to at the station, I went on social media and wrote my experience about waiting the previous day and this day and not being able to just identify these items. So when I did, it's social media, so it caught attention of people all over, and I think it went back to Kanengo Police. I had forgotten about it, and the next day I saw another report. I went there, and the police there identified me. They said, you are the one who posted such on social media. We had a very good interaction with the CID department in regards to what had happened with that situation and me posting on social media. So one thing that I discovered from my interaction with them was I had posted because I had a perspective or a perception about the police. So everything that I read, everything that I hear people say about the police, this is what they do. If they are not doing that, it's because they're trying to hide A and B. So I was like, oh, if I put this on social media, probably I'll get some attention that I need, which I got, of course, but it never really helped me to speak to anyone. But it actually just went to the police, and I think they had internal discussion about what had happened. My question to you is, how should we as a society look at the police? I'm talking about this because I was there. I could have probably asked or inquired who the seniors are, but I felt like, no, these people don't really serve me at this particular time. I had this mentality that a police voter, because this is what I've read in the many. So I'd rather just put it out there on social media. I know if I ask for the Bwana, I will not even be taken to the Bwana. They'll just... What should we do as citizens? What's our responsibilities in making sure that we assist and we help to make sure that the service is what it is in the laws?
Right. I I'll tackle it in two ways. In the first place, it might be one weakness that the Malawi Police Service has in terms of its commitment of information to the public. In the police service, at headquarters, at regional headquarters, and at district police station level, there is a tiny office there which is called Internal Affairs and Professional Standards Unit.
Yeah.
The Internal Affairs and Professional Standard Unit was established with the purpose of really being an internal check on how, as a police service, they are delivering service to the public. We have professional standards that we're supposed to follow. Are we following that standard? So, if this information was communicated very well for the members of the public to know, then somebody who finds dissatisfaction with the service delivery at a police station would quickly ask to see the officers in the professional standards unit to relate this dissatisfaction. If that station doesn't have the professional standard unit, the other office that would handle those issues is the public relations office, and each district police station has a public relations officer. They would really handle. But I would also want to bring it to the police officers themselves that indeed they will be confronted with the situations where sometimes they cannot offer immediate assistance to a member of the public. They should be open to it and inform that member of public, we are sorry, we are preoccupied with this, we cannot help you at the moment. Either you wait for us or you can go and do other things and come after 2 hours. That type of communication would be communication that is helpful. Because at the end of the day, they cannot blame the member of the public for complaining because they failed to provide service to them.
Thank you so much. In one of your writings, I came across something that goes to the same narrative of how best can we enhance not just the police service, in this case, probably security, how security is actually deployed, or how to just make sure that we have proper security in the country. And that took me back to one of the initiatives that you had done. I don't know if you did it several times or it was just once, where you invited different stakeholders from the city. I think it was called Fathers, something had Fathers in the name. City Fathers or something, where...
Was it Business Against Crime?
Should be Business Against Crime. You invited different business operators,
Yes.
and you sat down to just discuss how best to enhance security. But that was like years ago. Yeah. But then around 2020, you wrote, I'm not sure what had happened this time, but there was a post that you said, first, implement the establishment of the Independent Police Complaints Commission as set in the law. Secondly, implement the lay visitors scheme as provided in the law. Thirdly, provide absolute civilian oversight in the ministry responsible. Fourthly, improve the lines of information flow in the criminal justice system to promote efficiency and effectiveness. Fifthly, consider a fully-fledged Directorate of Public Prosecutions that handles all prosecutions. Then sixthly, empower the Professional Standards and Inspectorate Unit of the Malawi Police Service. This is like a lot that needs to be done just to make sure that we have enhanced security and probably we are able to curb corruption and all these things that people complain about. Can you put this in a way that a layman who is listening to you could understand what you are trying to say? What was the point that you are putting across?
All right. You would see that the Professional Standards Unit
is mentioned here. Yeah.
The Professional Standard Unit focuses internally in making sure that the organization keeps professional standards. By keeping professional standards, they will be improving on service delivery. Now, the Professional Standards Unit out externally is pretty linked to the Independent Complaints Commission.
Right.
The Independent Complaints Commission is a commission that was set to be an independent commission that investigates complaints against police, more particularly complaints to do with violence caused by the police and death that occurs in police custody or under the police. The Independent Complaints Commission investigates all cases. Any death that happens in police hands is supposed to be investigated by the Independent Complaints Commission. So that when the result comes in, and if, for example, the result says the police didn't do anything wrong, people would not complain because they know it has been an independent investigation. That keeps police officers on the alert. That, look, I have to handle members of the public, I have to handle suspects carefully. Because if I use violence or if they get injured or they die, there will be an independent investigation in the matter. Now, it is also linked to the concept of the lay visitors scheme. Under community policing, each police station is supposed to have men and women from the community that the station is in who are appointed by the executive committee of community policing in that district to be lay visitors to police cells. They are members of the community, but they come officially to inspect the condition of suspects in police cells. It helps keep the safety and the security of those people in police cells. They would be able to say, look, we have checked in police cells, we have come across this person who has been there for 14 days. This person hasn't been charged. What's happening? So it does keep checks and balances. Now, these arrangements are not comfortable to police officers.
Yes.
They feel they are being watched too closely. But what should be appreciated is that police officers have executive powers that other citizens and government employees don't have.
And have, exactly.
Because they have these executive powers that enable them to limit the rights of an individual. They have to be monitored how they use the executive power.
Exactly.
They have to be accountable on the use of that executive power. So it is a very challenging environment. It's a process that the government is now implementing, but it's slow. I have learned change is always slow, but it is necessary.
Yeah.
Now, the concept of a fully independent prosecution
directorate, yes,
is a concept that has been discussed since Malawi became a democracy. There was a time, I remember, one director of public prosecutions was aggressively pursuing that. Because the director of public prosecutions is responsible for all prosecutions. But he has delegated some of his responsibilities for the prosecution of minor cases to the police. So the police has a prosecutions department. Now, you'll find that sometimes the public complains of they don't trust the police process. The whole concept in criminal justice, you cannot be the arrestor, the prosecutor at the same time.
Yeah.
So at the ideal level, we were supposed to have a fully fledged directorate of public prosecutions where the police arrests, investigates. When the file is complete, handed over to the directorate. They are independent from the investigators and the arresters, and they prosecute. So it's an ideal that I think not only for police officers but for members of the criminal justice system, the police, the courts, are still really, and the public directorate of public are still really grappling with. But in an ideal environment, that was what was supposed to be offered.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there are a lot of things that we talk about, and it always goes back to one's experience. When we're just moving, you don't have an issue. You don't really see these things. But when something happens and you're now dealing with the system, it's when you start learning, why is that happening this way? Why is that? And there's a lot, I think, of lack of information, mainly to the citizens on what's the police, all these departments that you're talking about, investigations department, prosecutions department, and all that. It's something that we don't really understand. We only see the police as a police, traffic, a police agitators or general duties. That's it. But all these things are things that
police mobile service.
Yes.
The uniformed police is known, but the investigating side of the police is not really known because they interact, but they are in civilian.
In the civilian, yes.
You don't fully understand the processes they go through. The prosecutions only comes into the public arena when they are in court. So they are not available for the general public per se. So the general public has little understanding and appreciation of what they do.
Right.
And people don't realize there are also a whole lot of other
departments yes.
that are there to assist in the investigations. So they don't know you have explosive experts. So they wouldn't know what an explosive expert does. They are not part of CID, but they are a tool of CID. people don't know you have ballistic experts who are different. They are experts about the use of the gun, but they are not police mobile service. They don't carry guns. Ballistics experts would explain the science of the gun and the bullet, etc. So you find that that knowledge is not existent out there in the public for people to appreciate it. You have people that are experts in reading your fingerprints. You know your fingerprints are only unique to you.
Yeah.
Even when you are twins,
Yeah.
identical twins, but you don't have identical fingerprints.
All right. So, apart from the lack of information that is there, I think one thing that we always complain about as citizens is usually political interference in how the police goes about their duties. During your time as IG, what were your experiences with political interference in how the police executes its service? I know you were part of the leadership that turned the Malawi Police Force into the Malawi Police Service, if I'm not wrong. Was it that during your time as Inspector General? No, it wasn't, right?
No, not at all. The police reform program started soon after Malawi became a democracy.
Okay.
We became a democracy in 1994.
94, yes.
And the police reform program started in February of 1995 after the president then, Dr. Bakili Munuzi,
yes,
appointed the presidential reform, the presidential committee on police reforms. Now, I so happen to have been the second in charge of research and planning. So my officer in charge was the secretary of the presidential commission. And that pulled me into it because I was there to assist my officer in charge. And later on, I took over as an officer in charge of research and planning. So the number of years I spent in research and planning were responsible for my very intense and extensive involvement in the reforms.
All right.
Now, when you talk about political interference in police work, it is a challenging environment. In the first place, I have often said to people, politicians have a political program. They have an agenda that they want to fulfill within the 5 years when they are
in power.
And then you as a police officer have a responsibility to be professional in discharging your duties. For police officers at a lower level, I have always said they are lucky to be at a lower level because they have a higher level they can refer any political pressure they are receiving. If an officer in charge of a district is receiving pressure from politicians, that officer in charge should not hold on to the problem, but hand it over to the commissioner of that particular region. If the commissioner of that particular region has political pressure, then they should hand it over to the Inspector General, who is there actually to make sure there is a balance. It is now the responsibility of the Inspector General to see how they interact with the minister responsible for the police and with the president to solve that political puzzle. I'll give a simple example One time I got a phone call from a minister who was not my minister of
Home Affairs
and Internal Security, as it was called then. And her complaint to me was, I have some boys from my home area who have reported to Mtakataka Police Training School as recruits. They are complaining of cruelty by the trainers. They wake them up before 4 a.m. and they are awake up to 10 p.m. The place is very hard and cruel. And I said to that minister, Honorable Minister, do you want these boys from your home area in 6 months' time to come out as police constables? And she said to me, yes, I do. I said, right now, they are villagers. And police basic training has to remove the village in them and insert the police constable in them. It's not an easy job. They wake up at 4 because they have to go for physical exercise. They have to be strong. Then they spend the whole day in class or on parade ground. In the evening, they have to make sure that their uniforms are clean and ironed for the next day. Their boots are polished. So that keeps them occupied. They have to study as well. So, and her response was very positive. Thank you so much. Thank you for telling me this. This is very helpful. So sometimes politicians end up behaving the way they are because those of us that are professionals don't have the professional courage to explain to them what the laws of the country say, the laws that are not set up by the police
itself,
but by the politicians through parliament. So it is an intrinsic balance that we still have to learn. I think 30 plus years of democracy is still a very, very median period.
Yeah.
You know, we are still, all of us are learning to operate in a democracy. Our learning curve is still very steep.
Okay. Like I said, we want to make these conversations as short as possible per each episode so that people can actually watch and also we can set the pace for the next one that we have. I think on this one today, we have really focused more on your professional experience and talking about the police and whatnot. There are a lot of things that I would want us to explore.
All right.
And one of them is really your passion and how we can tap into that to help our viewers, some of whom are really young people that are in secondary school, some that are in college, or young professionals that have just started working and they're in their formative years of their professional journey. And I'm sure with your experience now as also a retired officer, there's a lot that you can even share with the seniors in public office, private office today.
Yes.
Because you have been through these systems, you have interacted with most of them at the highest level possible. I will be closing this episode for now, while we also look into the next one that we're going to talk about more. You have now retired, And one of the things that I know actually a lot of people discussed in length about your life, which is what I was talking about when we were just starting this conversation, was something that you also shared on social media some time back. And I'll also read what you had said that time. You said, there was a time when I used to have two phones, TNM and Airtel. They would keep ringing from 4 a.m. to about 11 p.m. That was the time I would be recognized by so many people on the streets and had so many "Do you remember me's?" asked of me. I got invitations to engagements, weddings, and fundraising events. I traveled abroad on average 3 or 4 times a year. Today, I sit on the sofa for 3 to 4 days with no single person phoning. This phone, 90% of the times, is used as a play toy by my little boy Chifundo. I walk through the shopping mall and nobody recognizes me anymore. Nobody wants to remind me who they are. No invitations to events are forthcoming anymore. I last traveled abroad in November 2019. I think my passport is now expired. What has changed? That's the question that you posed. Then you said, those things were not happening to me because I was me. They happened because of what I was, not what I was. Now, what I was belongs to others. This lot is what you really are. Forget what is behind you. Focus on enjoying the moment and what is ahead. Develop an attitude of gratitude. Very few people will ever get to be 63 years old. I read this and I think I had mixed reactions when I read it. And the same thing with, I think, other people that also read that post. Because maybe, apart from me, who I had known you as somebody who is always preaching at church, who is always delivering motivational talks to young people, most people that knew you as the Inspector General of Police or the former Inspector General of Police, and they never knew your other life outside that. And reading this post created mixed reactions in people. Is Lot Dzonzi suffering? Is Lot Dzonzi not enjoying his time? Can you take us through this post and the experiences that really led to you to share this side of being a retired person from one of the highest offices to actually seeing life from this angle now?
I remember one of the reactions that was there was from a police officer who declared, "You were not prepared for retirement." And I simply commented to him, "Thank you. Prepare for retirement. We will welcome you in retirement."
Right?
You see, Malawians, as we earlier said, keep things to themselves, and at the end they deprive others of information and knowledge about various situations. The majority of people that have reacted to that positively were people that are in retirement, because our experience is the same. Just last week, there was a video clip circulating on social media by somebody in Zambia. I came to know it because someone who had read what I had said on my post sent me that video clip and said, "Lot Dzonzi, look at how this guy has summarized what you said," because it is a real experience for retirees. I didn't put it down because I was saying I was suffering, but I wanted to educate people. And my target actually for that post was not people that are retired. It was people that are still employed, in service, in whatever. That, look, you have to mentally prepare yourself for this transition. Because if you are going to hold on to what you are because of the job that you have, life in retirement is going to be very, very frustrating. When I arrived back from New York in 2019 to retire, late Paul Kanyama, who was also an inspector general like me, we were also in the same cadet class when we were cadet officers at police college, who had retired earlier than me, phoned me and said, "Lot, welcome back home and welcome to retirement." And he said to me, "Remember what the Ngwazi, the original, used to tell us. I want my people to have 3 things. A house that does not leak when it rains, clothes to wear, and food to eat." And he said, if you have these 3 basic things in retirement, you are home and dry. If only I can add one more thing, I can say a car that you can drive to go to church. And we laughed about it. What retirement does to everybody is that it does stripe you of all the things that surrounded you, that you thought they were you when they were not. You get to a point where you see the real you. I want to tell you what. You know that many people, even when I was working, people in church, people in the community that I live in, don't know that the name Lot is my first name. Since I use Lot Dzonzi, people think Lot is my family name. My family name is just an initial. The P in my initials is Pansipadana. So I should have been Lot Pansipadana if I registered like every other Malawian. But in our family, we use Chiwongo as our surname, Dzonzi. The reason I introduce myself as Lot to everybody, even when I am meeting the youth, I am now 65. I am meeting the youth and they are teenagers. I introduce myself as Lot. I never introduce myself as Mr. Dzonzi. Other people should call me Mr. Dzonzi. I am Lot. I am Lot Dzonzi. Because my mother was Ndebele. In Ndebele, you are known by your name. You are not known by your second name. Yeah. Because if you come to my home and ask for Dzonzi, we are 4 brothers.
Everybody will come out.
We are 4 brothers. Which Dzonzi are you looking for? You have to say you are looking for Lot. So at the end, because I am Lot and I carry myself as Lot, the burdens that this world can place on you as individuals are very light for me. But what I was really trying to communicate is never be preoccupied with who you were when you were in employment, when you are in retirement. Because your employment, your position in your employment gave you certain accesses that you will not now have. People used to tremble for you because of the office you held. They now don't. So it's something that is helpful for people to think if they are on retirement to avoid being frustrated. It's something people should be mindful of as they graduate and transit into retirement.
Profound. And I think it's one of the things that we really miss and we don't think about.
Yes.
Whenever we are in some spaces, the thought of transitioning from that space into a new space doesn't really come. Not going even into retirement, but when we are working, because I work for organization A, we sometimes program ourselves as somebody that I'll sit here, I'll be here for the rest of. So any change that comes in as a shock, that you want to carry everything that you were when you were in this place.
And these things apply in a lot of areas in our lives. Many times on Saturday mornings, when I see people bum around about posing for pictures after the official ceremony of their wedding in church,
yes,
I often say to myself, I feel pity for you, girl, because that boy is going to leave you at his house to go and chat with friends. Many young marriages today are struggling because this girl thought, if he marries me, I am now going to be the center of this world. But the boy has not changed. He still wants to keep all his friends and spend the same amount of time he was spending with his friends, without realizing he has to reduce. Because now he has brought into his life this girl into his life
that needs his time now.
So part of the time he used to enjoy his friends has to go, and children come into that home.
Exactly.
Part of the time that has to be taken away is from the friends and not from the children. So we are facing constant change in our lives, and we have to adjust. I used to jog. I was a long distance runner when I was younger. I can't do it anymore. You have to make all those adjustments in life.
There's a lot that I would want us to explore. I actually asked you that when you're coming, you should bring some of your books, because I know you have been writing books. And we just talked about the 12 principles of success that you wrote when you were about to return from New York. And there are many other books that I would want us to find time to just go through some of them and to have a discussion based on some of the topics that you have written in some of these books. There's one that I personally know. I don't know if it's here. Soaring with the Eagles. I've read Soaring with the Eagles. Oh no, it's not a book. You had shared about a manuscript. I don't know if you have written this book. It's, I think, one of the 3 manuscripts that you have been working on recently. I don't know if it's one was actually named after one of the series that you're also doing, the workshops and seminars that you're doing, which I thought I would be very interested in to read, but I wanted to know what else I had not seen. And the fact that you brought them here, I should be able to get 1 or 2 to read, so that when we have another conversation, we can just have a discussion about what you have been reading, and then we can share with our listeners and viewers based on what you have already written out there. So now I know a lot of things have been happening, and in conclusion of this episode, how are you spending your retirement, what are the things that you do? I know a lot of people might not know that you were bedridden for some time, the past few years, and you actually underwent one major operation that I also thought had really crippled your ability to find yourself in different spaces and whatnot. And one of the things that I was expecting was you would be coming here on a wheelchair.
Right.
But I saw you walking in, you drove yourself in. I was, okay. Can you tell us that as conclusion, which will also now be an opening of our next conversation, which we want to now explore your life after and now the lessons from your books?
Right. No, I think I am involved in various things that are keeping me occupied. At a national level, in terms of national service, I was fortunate in October 2022 to be appointed as one of the directors of the Malawi National Examinations Board.
Oh.
When they were appointing me, they told me they had considered two things about me. Number one, they had considered that issues of security are quite prime
in the administration of exams. Exactly.
So they looked at that aspect. Secondly, they looked at the aspect that for 5 years I was a secondary school teacher. I was a trained and practicing examiner. In other words, I was a marker, but people who mark exams are called examiners. So that's the reason they appointed me as one of the directors of the board of MANEP. We meet every quarter, so it's something that you meet 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And our term is finishing the coming October. So I would have attended 8 MANEP board meetings by end of October. That's something at a national level that I am preoccupied with. In terms of my church involvement, I am a church elder at Mvunguti CCAP. Mvunguti CCAP is in Jimpango village. Actually, I live in Jimpango village, not Jinsapo. But it's easier to say I live in Jinsapo because Jinsapo is known, Jimpango village is not known. So I am a church elder in that church. I chair a committee responsible for church management. So all issues to do with administration, human resources in the church, I handle those issues. And then I do a lot. I work with the youth director in the church. I still receive not as many invitations as I used to preach in other churches. Recently, I was preaching at Katate CCAP, which is within our neighborhood. I have been preaching at Lilongwe CCAP of the Livingstonia Synod. So I still get invitations to speak in some of the churches around. That keeps me occupied. And then at a family level, some 2 months ago, tired of spending my time around the home, we have two gardens, and my wife for the past 2 years since my leg amputation has been managing this other garden alone. It has been difficult for her to manage this other one. So I decided, look, instead of sitting on this chair at home and read or write, why don't I transfer one of my Conde chairs to the garden? I'll sit there, still read, still write, but at the same time supervise.
Monitor and supervise the garden.
So I am spending my time that way. It's quite satisfactory. I never understood Nelson Mandela when he said in his book Long Walk to Freedom that he attributed his survival of 27 years in prison to this vegetable garden that they allowed him to keep, where he grew tomatoes. The thought is very linked to also what another writer who wrote the book The Search of Meaning. He was a Jewish writer who survived the gas chambers,
The Holocaust.
He said, he who has a purpose for living will find a way for living. And when you have something that keeps you going, that gives you purpose, it takes away your mind from negative thoughts and worries. Apart from the gardening that I do personally now, I do two major things. I read a lot. I have a personal library which I have around the home. It has over, I think, 3,000 books.
Wow.
I read a lot. And because of my reading, that is what stimulates my
The writing.
writing. As you have indicated, right now I have 4 manuscripts that I have developed. I'm just really looking for the resources to have them, out. Among these books, there are 2 that are related. One is on visionary leadership. The other one is on
This one?
transformational
Leadership.
Now, talking about visionary leadership and transformational leadership, you'll find there is one that is missing on servant leadership. The one on servant leadership is in manuscript form. But I wanted to write for people to know. In 2018 onwards, there was a lot of talk in this country about visionary leadership,
Yes.
transformational
Leadership.
servant leadership. But the people talking about it never defined them to us. What is visionary leadership? What is transformational leadership? What is servant leadership? What are the differences? And I decided I would want to write in that direction. My other unpublished manuscript is Thinking Aloud. Is Thinking Aloud.
Exactly, that's the one that I wanted.
And it is about mindsets. Apart from the issues of transformational leadership, visionary leadership, servant leadership, there has been a lot of talk about
Mindset change.
mindset change.
Yes.
So I decided to write something about the mindset. And the most amazing thing to me is how the Bible talks a lot about mindsets beyond what we normally think about. So that's what I keep doing. Reading, writing, and now going to the garden, church things, money business when that business arises, and then doing some youth workshops where needed. In church, one thing in church I am doing, I adopted a group of young boys. Most CCAP churches have Madala choirs.
Yes.
These boys call themselves New Madala. I adopted them. They dress like old people. And I said I would want to expose these young people to to a broader world.
Yeah.
And so I appointed myself their patron.
Wow.
Amazingly, I have spent time going through one of these books of mountains and valleys with them. Okay. I have gone through with them, soaring with the eagles, mentoring them, developing them. Okay. So that keeps me occupied. But in terms of linking to my former work, I am one of the founder members of the Retired Police Officers Association. I am actually the chairperson of the board of directors of the Retired Police Officers Association. It's still a growing thing. It's still really at its infant stage. And one of the things that we want to do as a Retired Police Officers Association is to establish a professional private security company where we can offer security, but we can also offer consultancy in the area of security.
Wow.
Sure.
Impressive. No, thank you so much for taking your time to just speak to us today. This is the beginning of the conversations that we would really have with you to explore different topics and different experiences, thoughts, and ideas as well. So maybe we can try to drive change into the minds of a lot of young people. That's how I conclude my first episode with the former IG of the Malawi Police, who I fondly call Brother Lot Dzonzi. This has been LAB20 podcast, and we are into discussions that really matter, that shape the future of this generation, of this nation, and where we're heading into the global world. Make sure that if you ever happen to watch this podcast, subscribe to our channel. Make sure you share this podcast with your friends, and also leave us a comment on who you might want to listen to or you want to hear from on this set. My name is Dennis Imani, and a very huge thanks to LAB20 Tours and LAB20 Innovations for making this podcast happen. Make sure you always tune in as we drop the next episode next week. Thank you so much, and peace. We're out. Thank you so much, Brother Loti, for coming through.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4.